Donal MacIntyre, investigative journalist best known for his fearless work confronting dangerous criminal organisations, is on a mission to uncover the modern face of international crime. Travelling with him to some of the world's best-known cities, we'll meet members of the criminal underworld, police and local residents to discover what life is really like in the world's toughest towns. Donal's in a town gripped by a local gang war.
It's just fucking crazy out there at the moment.
Where £1 billion drug trade is fueling the rivalry. And the authorities are unable to cope.
We have been petrol bombed.
This says nobody's safe.
But Donal's not just a visitor here. This is Dublin, his hometown. And he's come back to find out why the city he grew up in is tearing itself apart. Dublin, Ireland, home to Oscar Wilde, James Joyce, U2 and Donal MacIntyre. As a young news reporter, he patrolled these streets writing about crime in the city, and 15 years later he's back. Dublin was founded as a Viking settlement over 1,000 years ago and is now the capital of Ireland. Despite a history of political turbulence, it's culturally sophisticated and loved for its charms. Ireland is enjoying a period of political calm in which Dublin has flourished and has recently been the centre of an economic boom. But despite its recent success, Dublin is also in the grip of a power struggle between warring gangs. The extent of the violence has made the army bomb squad busier than they were during the Northern Ireland conflict. Donal has come to Dublin to uncover this new threat to the city. He's returned to his hometown to find out why it's been seduced by a flood of readily available hard drugs.
Well, this is Temple Bar and this is the party district of Dublin. This is where the hen parties, the American tourists, the students, the stag doos, they come to party and to excess. But I'm going to show you a part of Dublin tourists don't go, tourists don't want to see, and frankly a part of Dublin which terrifies the life out of me.
Ireland's crime rate is one of the highest in Europe. 1 in 4 people report that they have been the victim of crime. Gangland crimes have the lowest detection rate, with just 15% being solved. Donal wants to learn about the gangs who are fighting for control on Dublin streets. So he's arranged to meet Ireland's most distinguished crime journalist, Paul Williams.
Who? Hang on a second, hang on. Yeah, how are you? Hang on there, Kev. Yeah? What's wrong?
Paul's been a crime reporter in this city for over 21 years, and his relentless pursuit of the truth has made him the scourge of Gangland's criminal kingpins. With Gangland activity on the rise, he's rarely away from his phones, negotiating with police contacts and aggrieved gangsters.
But it was only a small clipping job, is it?
He's promised to fill Donal in on the city's exploding criminal scene.
It's just fucking crazy out there at the moment. Dublin has emerged probably as one of the most violent cities in modern Western Europe. In the first 20 days of 2009, a total of 5 men have been murdered in Dublin. Another 5 have been shot and seriously injured. To say this town at the moment is like a powder keg, there's no way it could be accused of hyperbolizing or exaggerating it. In the Republic of Ireland last year, a population of 4 million people, we had in excess of 21 gangland murders, the majority of them here in Dublin. These are murders where criminals get guns and go out and assassinate or execute each other. This is not counting fellas who have been kicked to death or stabbed to death or driven across by cars or given overdoses to get them out of the way. These guys are armed with the best of stuff. Their weapon of choice in this town is the Glock automatic. They have SIG automatic pistols. They have, in some cases, AK-47s, HK MP5s, which are the weapon of choice for special forces across the world.
In the past 48 hours, there have been 2 more Gangland murders. As a crime journalist, this means that Paul's in high demand.
Okay. I'll just do a quick radio interview, is that right?
A post-mortem examination will be carried out later on the body of the latest Gangland murder victim here in Dublin.
Extraordinary developments. It's getting better by the day, as they say, or busier by the day, or madder by the day. The thing is out of control. It is quite literally out of control. The reality is that you cannot stop a coked-up lunatic who's out of control with no sense of behavioural boundaries or parameters going out and shooting somebody else.
Small-time gangster and drug dealer Stephen O'Halloran was shot 4 times in the chest and once in his head as he sat in his car on this estate in Tala, South Dublin. In a separate incident here in North Dublin, top Gangland figure Graham McNally was shot 6 times in the head. It's believed McNally was double-crossed by his Gangland boss who suspected McNally was trying to muscle in on his drug-dealing empire. These feuds are commonplace amongst the estimated 140 drug gangs operating in Dublin.
That paranoia, that let's kill him before he kills me mentality, the fact that weapons are so widely available. There are guys actually killing other associates purely on a whim because they suspect that that person might be trying to set them up when that might not be true. So it is sort of taken on a whole life of its own. And it's resulting literally in madness.
Since the dawn of the new millennium, there have been over 130 gang-related murders. That's more than took place in London, a city 10 times the size.
Well, there's never been a better time to catch up on the drug and criminal scene in Dublin, because Dublin has never had it so bad. The highest number of seizures, the highest number of murders. This is a town which is caught in a drug epidemic.
The victims in this conflict are often dealt with by the men and women of the Dublin Fire Brigade and Ambulance Service. This unique unit comprises both trained firefighters and paramedics and responds to all emergencies across the centre of Dublin.
Delta 6-4, priority message, go ahead.
The shift has barely started and already the calls are flying in.
Control call at Delta 2-4 now. Delta 6-4, that's just a premature baby in cardiac arrest. Delta 2-4, I'll have a case there for you lads. You want to set off the bells?
Officer Barney Mulhall has never been so busy. He responds to every call from a drug overdose to gangland shootings. And it's not just the gang members who are being attacked.
It can be dangerous at times. So unfortunately we are seen as a target. Verbal abuse to stone thrown, bottling. We have been petrol bombed.
But gangland fallout isn't his only concern. Barney also deals with the reckless behaviour of drunken revellers enjoying Dublin's nightlife. As Barney moves through the city centre, the scale of his task becomes apparent.
Sorry Ian, while I'm talking to you, there's a big melee after breaking out. I'm on Liffey Street, lower, and there's 6 or 7 people thumping the head off one another, so you need the guards here as soon as you can.
Barney's seen it all a million times and is calm under pressure. But it's not easy on the front line.
It's well ensued.
As a lone officer, Barney is forced to wait for backup from the Garda before attempting to intervene.
It's actually after spilling onto the quays now on the same side as the bridge, so they're still going at one another.
For Barney, the increase in gang crime and firearm-related incidents is more disturbing. Gunshot admissions to Dublin's James Connolly Hospital have increased 400% in the last 4 years.
I have responded to numerous amounts of shootings. When you have somebody lying dead in front of you, that shows how brutal it is. And the people that are doing it, there's no compassion in them. Absolutely no compassion.
It's not long before Dublin's Gangland makes its presence felt out on the streets and Barney has to respond. As he arrives near the scene, more details emerge about the nature of the call. A family has been attacked by a gang as they walked home in North Dublin.
Just give us a look.
Oh, braces on.
Okay, that's grand. Yourself, you were hit just in the face, is it? Okay, the fact that you've been hit there, it'll do no harm for you to be seen in the hospital anyway. Just to get a check over. That mightn't look an awful lot, but to which?
That's how you do nothing, you get attacked for nothing.
Oh, that's how crazy.
You know, we didn't do anything.
Right.
The next thing, came out with our 3 flats and started attacking us, you know.
They were looking for trouble, so?
Yeah, crowd of them, you know. Just out of nowhere.
Yeah.
It's crazy, isn't it? It's a crazy world now.
Gang members in Dublin are so out of control that it's become normal for youths to roam the streets attacking innocent bystanders. This time the gang were armed with baseball bats. The family managed to get away before the situation became more serious. The violence Barney encounters is often drug-related. He's all too familiar with the damage and misery that drugs cause.
I've lost count to the number of overdoses that I've responded to and the amount of time that I'm in the service. The workload is just increasing all the time. And it doesn't necessarily have to be in what people would say deprived areas or not. It doesn't matter. Drugs are drugs.
For Barney, the increase in drugs on the streets is evident. Every day in Ireland, someone dies of a drug overdose. The flooded marketplace means competition for customers is fierce amongst the dealers on Dublin streets. An EU survey has now ranked Ireland as the easiest place in the whole of Europe to find and buy Class A drugs.
Through our Dublin contacts, I've managed to secure an interview with a former addict and drug dealer who's keen to talk to me. Now, these drug dealers, they're the foot soldiers for the gang bosses. Now, I want to know what it's like to work for a gang boss and how they go about dodging the bullets in this city.
Donal's contact asked for his identity to be concealed in order to protect himself and his family from possible reprisals.
You know, I used to hide it everywhere. I used to hide me stuff in cans of Coke.
I used to hide my stuff in cans of Coke, down the shoes, in my mouth.
In my mouth.
Up my arse as well.
Up my annual as well.
I'd have bars in my windows. I'd have steel gates on the landings. I'd steel gates on the front door, behind the door, in the hall of the flat.
The hall in the flat.
I used to buy it in quantities. Like at the time it would have been 1,800 quid an ounce. You double your money on it at the time because it was like 20 quid a bag. It was just kind of more like getting sweets out of the shop, really. It's more available now.
It's more available now.
Years ago, you'd have to stand around waiting until somebody came. Now you can go to any part of the country and get it down anywhere, not just Dublin, anywhere in the country.
But for Dublin's dealers, the biggest fear isn't the police or the threat of jail. It's the ruthless violence meted out by the Gangland bosses.
People out there, if you owe them
whether you owe them 20 quid or 100 quid, they'll go through any door looking for it. The way they look at it, if you let one person away with it, with 50 euro, 20 euro,
or 20 euro, everybody's going to do it, so they're going to make an example.
So they're going to make an example of one if it's taking them into the car, to the back roads, or shoot them, or stab
them, or whatever, you know.
There's a lot more shooting now in the last couple of years than there was maybe 10, 15 years ago. You could be anywhere, in the wrong place, at the wrong time. You're going to get shot.
It's a sad fact that the people of Dublin have had to steel themselves to conflict because of Ireland's turbulent past. The Easter Uprising of 1916 and subsequent Irish War of Independence were designed to end British rule across Ireland. Further conflict began in 1922 with the Civil War, which pitted the Irish against each other. Out of this struggle, the Irish Republican Army was formed. In recent years, the IRA's most notable battles were on the streets of Northern Ireland. The Northern Ireland conflict, or the Troubles as they are commonly known, have accounted for nearly 4,000 people being killed in a bloody campaign that lasted over 30 years. The IRA forged allies around the world, developing illegal trade routes with terrorist organisations and using them to smuggle weapons and explosives. During this time, Dublin was one of the IRA's heartlands, and their presence meant that they had a unique grip over crime in the city. The IRA policed Dublin's estates, expelling and sometimes killing drug dealers that were destroying their communities. Donal wants to explore the possible links between the former IRA and Dublin's modern-day gangland fraternity. He's meeting with security correspondent Jim Cusack, who's agreed to share his knowledge.
The Italian mafia sprung from the nationalist movements of the 19th century, and the triads is similar. And what happened there in Italy and China before, and other places, has just happened in Ireland in the last 2 decades, where former nationalist, paramilitary, or terrorist movements gave way to what became major criminal conspiracies.
How involved are retired IRA activists in crime in Dublin?
Well, there was one particular instance there, and it's a matter that's still before the courts, where a well-known IRA family here in Dublin went straight from Republican paramilitarism, terrorism, straight into the heroin trade, and they became very big at it. They were actually bringing stuff in by the caseload, hiring planes, and that added a new element to it here, added a new element of professionalism. They were bringing the tricks of the trade that they learned as an international, highly efficient and successful terrorist group. They brought that to bear on the criminal scene here in Dublin, and it definitely upped the ante.
What are the links between dissident Republicans and other criminal networks?
There was an outbreak of violence in South Inner Dublin in 2007, 2008, and that was all dissident Republicans fighting with the old provisional IRA and with local drug dealers, and that was all over money from drugs.
Is witness intimidation a big problem in this town?
Witness intimidation is very, very common here. You had one case last year where 14 witnesses and a jury, at least one jury member, were intimidated, up to including a man coming into one of the witnesses' place of work with a balaclava on, pointing a gun at his head and saying, "If you give evidence, you're dead." And that goes on all the time.
With an established modus operandi, it wasn't difficult for the former members of the IRA to transfer their skills to other endeavours.
They used to import arms into this country, and they had very well established arms networks and smuggling routes coming from Eastern Europe and sometimes Southern Europe, and particularly Spain. And those same routes were transferred into drugs.
Men who had brutalised dealers under IRA law are now dealers themselves. Links to South American drug cartels were first confirmed in 2001 when 3 IRA members were found deep in the Colombian jungle negotiating with a terrorist group known for cocaine production. Then in 2007, a boat containing €500 million worth of cocaine was intercepted off the west coast of Ireland. But these drugs weren't just destined for the Emerald Isle.
They have made Ireland a gateway for drugs, definitely into Britain. Irish cocaine dealers became very, very big in the last 10, 15 years on the continent. And there was no end to the supply of cocaine coming in here. And you've seen drugs seeping into places where they never existed before. Parts of the country which were completely drug-free 5, 10 years ago now have serious problems with heroin and other hard drugs.
The city's gangs haven't been long on this particular path. Still, They've managed to flood Ireland with heroin and cocaine, and they're looking to expand their market into mainland Europe.
We do have some of the most professional criminals in Europe, and a lot of that has to do with the inherited experience and intelligence they got as being with the IRA. The IRA was an incredibly efficient terrorist organisation.
Coming up, Donal joins Dublin Customs on the front line in the war against drugs.
I'd say it's under the bunk, it's just something dense.
And he finds out how easy it is to make a car bomb. A place of inspiration to poets, novelists and playwrights alike, Dublin has a huge cultural heritage. But it also has a less romantic aspect. The drug trade in Ireland is a €1 billion industry. In 2007, Irish Customs intercepted over €135 million of drugs as they entered the country. But it's thought that this is only 10% of the amount successfully smuggled in. The Port of Dublin sees nearly 1.5 million passengers come through its barriers each year. With an additional 30 million tonnes of container freight, the men and women of Dublin's customs have their work cut out. It's up to them to intercept illegal loads of drugs and guns. Donal is going to meet Customs Officer Martin Rogers at Dublin Port to see how Customs are trying to stem the flow of drugs into the city.
The war on drugs is a very complex and difficult field for us to fight because there's so many different challenges facing law enforcement when it comes to the war on drugs.
Is Customs winning the war against drugs?
We're the frontline service whose primary mission is to keep drugs out of this country. We do our best to keep it out, but there are a number of factors within every society which makes a drugs problem happen. But as customs officers on the front line, we have a personal responsibility as well as an agency responsibility to protect the people of this country.
Martin and his team target drug smuggling on several fronts.
Thank you very much.
Foot passengers that arrive at the port are often met by Andrea and sniffer dog Thatcher. Trained to sniff out firearms and drugs, he is one of the most successful drug dogs in Dublin.
His largest seizure so far will be 20 kilos of herbal cannabis he got a while back there. The prisoner was arrested and he was sentenced to 4 years in prison. So that would be his biggest one to date. But all the dogs, I think, throughout the country have had huge success in relation to drugs and cigarettes and cash that have been seized by them.
However, success comes at a price. One of Thatcher's predecessors was kidnapped from his kennel by suspected Gangland figures. Thankfully, the dog was later rescued. But with the volume of traffic passing through the port, Martin needs more than just Thatcher to help detect contraband. Nearly 500,000 containers and lorries arrive in Dublin Port every year. It would take one officer up to an hour to search each one. So they've invested in a new weapon to fight drug smuggling, and it can search a lorry in just 3 minutes.
X-rays about to be produced.
Costing €3 million, the scanner x-rays the lorry and can distinguish weapons and drugs from the rest of the load.
Yeah, go ahead.
Control to Bravo Oscar. That last one there, you might just want to have a look at the cab, just do a quick cab search and have a look behind the driver's seat.
If anything within the container raises suspicion, it's opened up and a customs officer can be guided to the exact spot.
I'd say it's under the bunk, it's just something dense. I'd say there could be tools there of some kind.
The whole idea is for these guys to cloak these smuggled goods in legitimate traffic. The new technology is very important and vital to us because we need state-of-the-art equipment in order to identify the sometimes very sophisticated methods that smugglers use to hide their goods.
For Martin, however, one of the best tools to fight the war on drugs in Dublin is himself.
Hello, so what brings you to Ireland today? Are you carrying any large amounts of cash into the country?
Messi or passport, if you don't mind. The old technology is very important as well because the oldest technology a customs officer has, and sometimes the most important, are his intelligence, his eyes and his ears. The revenue nose, they used to call it, where a customs officer, through visual profiling, can see something that doesn't look right.
But even the best trained revenue nose can't sniff out all the drugs entering Ireland. In 2003, the Garda seized €650 million worth of drugs, 5 times what was confiscated at customs. This confirmed the fact that Dublin's criminal fraternity have taken advantage of their connections around the world to saturate the city. Dublin's underworld bosses are gaining in confidence, and reminiscent of Chicago's Prohibition era, they've been given nicknames adding glamour and kudos to their criminal standing. Dublin's most notorious boss is Fat Freddie Thompson. Aged just 27, he is the leader of the Drimna gang, who are currently involved in a brutal turf war in South Dublin. He currently has a €100,000 contract out on his life, brought by Declan Wacker Duffy, leader of the INLA, a militant wing of the IRA. Another of Fat Freddy's foes is Martin the Viper Foley. At 57, he's survived 5 attempts on his life, the last being when he was shot 8 times outside his gym. One of Ireland's most notorious gangland godfathers was John Gilligan. Now serving a 20-year prison sentence for masterminding a €40 million drug smuggling operation. During his heyday, he built a formidable criminal empire, but it came crashing down to earth in 1996. Dublin journalist Veronica Guerin had been writing about Gilligan and his gang, exposing their criminal escapades. Feeling she was a threat to his empire, he issued orders for her to be killed. On the 26th of June, she was driving home when a motorcycle pulled alongside her car. The hitman fired 6 shots into Veronica, killing her instantly. The story of her assassination became so notorious a Hollywood film was made of the events that led to her death. Donal has come to meet her brother Jimmy to talk about Veronica's murder and what it meant to Dublin's criminal underworld.
And what kind of person was Veronica?
She was typical Dublin. Wonderful person, type of character you meet every day of the week, full of personality, full of life, loved her family. Her occupation was that of a journalist, and she was in pursuit of truth. She believed in seeking social justice, and if she could use the pen to do that, she did it.
Why did Gilligan and co think they could get away with murder?
They totally underestimated what the public reaction would be to the murder of a journalist and a young mother who was going about her business. There had been numerous shootings within Dublin by that gang in the previous 12 months, and there had never been public outcry the same as there was against Veronica's death, because these people were shooting each other, and there isn't the same sympathy and there isn't the same feeling of disgust if a drug dealer or a gang member is killed. And they had become, I believe, they became to believe that they were untouchable and they could do anything and get away with anything.
Dublin's untouchables had crossed a line, murdering a journalist in cold blood on the streets of the city. It became a pivotal point in Gangland's history, but rather than lead to their ruin, they continued to grow.
Unfortunately, I don't see any reduction in the amount of crime in our streets. I don't see that people refer to Veronica's death, or indeed the deaths of others who have been innocently killed by drugs, and that has achieved anything which has reduced the horror on our streets. The best way that I can describe it, it's like blood running through the veins of a body. There is no section, community that escapes the horrors of drugs within our country at the moment. But I don't believe that the war is lost. I believe it's an ongoing war where there's no doubt but we're losing the battles. But I think in the end, right wins, and I think people will see that by supporting these gangs, all we're doing is contributing to the terror and the horror on our own streets.
A journalist murdered on the streets of a major Western European country is extremely disturbing. But this cavalier attitude is commonplace amongst the criminal underworld. But shootings aren't the only weapon in the gang's arsenal. Using the knowledge and experience gained during the Troubles, Dublin's criminals are now upping the ante. The use of bombs, grenades and explosive devices has increased by over 300% since 2007, with the bomb squad responding to 174 call-outs last year. The Army Bomb Disposal Unit are busier now than they were during the IRA's most brutal bombing campaign. In 2003, crime journalist Paul Williams had a bomb attached to his car, one of many attempts on his life.
I'm on my way to meet Tony Lewis now. He's a man with a military background and he knows exactly how to make car and pipe bombs. Now he promises to show me how they're put together and more importantly the damage that they can cause.
Tony is a forensic expert who's called to examine crime scenes involving explosives across Great Britain and Ireland.
So these are the ingredients of a very powerful homemade weapon.
They certainly are, yep. This is obviously, it's a steel tube threaded at both ends and then capped off with a blanking cap. And quite simply, you would place the improvised explosive, which is a kitchen sink explosive, into the tube and then screw on the cap, which has got a detonator in the end of that. And it's as simple as that. You've now got a lethal weapon ready to go.
The explosives packed in this pipe bomb are made up from half a kilo of basic kitchen chemicals, which can be bought in any high street store.
How much damage would a pipe bomb like this do?
That would certainly do enough damage to a vehicle to kill the occupant, if not at least severely injure them. This can be enhanced. I mean, they can add to this nails, nuts and bolts, bearings, whatever, if they want to enhance the shrapnel effect.
Traditionally, how would you attach a pipe bomb like that to a car?
Number of ways. Cable ties is a handy way of doing it. It's a little bit time consuming. I mean, the guy wants to get in there, get the bomb placed, get out again. In the case for us, we've got a powerful magnet. When that's attached to the bomb, it's literally a case then of just leaning underneath and placing it under the car. The bomb itself is filled with the detonator in place. We'll then attach that to the magnet. Obviously now we need to put the triggering mechanism in place, which is just a case of actually taping or cable tying that into position and then placing your two wires into the box.
And then this would be your radio controlled zap.
Is that. So once you've turned on the arm key, it's literally then just a case of press the arm button, press the fire button.
Tony adds some finishing touches to the bomb and they head toward the car. In Dublin, the bomb squad are called to devices like these once every 2 days.
So we've got the target's car.
Yeah.
So what we really want is we want to make sure we're getting the target because we want the guy who's driving it. So the best way to do that is either clamp it onto the side or on the roof, but most effectively would be underneath. So to do that, we would literally slide it underneath the car, get it underneath his seat and clamp it on, and that's ready to go.
And even if at a traffic light, you could just call by and bang, and by the time you've sped off, zap.
Yep. He wouldn't even necessarily know what's happened. He wouldn't be able to see out of his window unless he wound it down and had a look over, and that's to your advantage when you press the button.
But I mean, isn't it a terrifying prospect to know that years and years of that kind of technological kind of terrorist know-how is now entering the gangster underworld?
Well, this becomes more of a tit-for-tat thing. Before, it was a carefully pre-planned military operation, if you like. At this stage, what we're doing now is we're going to take this guy out, they're going to want to take one of our guys out, and it just escalates.
Tony arms the device and Donal moves back away from the blast zone. The safety area is 300 metres away, a luxury innocent bystanders wouldn't have in Dublin.
Okay, what we're going to do now is you will press the test button.
Yeah.
So the light flashes red, and then you'll press 1 and fire, which is this button and this button, and that will.
And you're going to give an audible warning.
I'm going to do that now just before we're ready to go. Yep.
3, 2, 1.
Imagine that in the city centre.
Imagine that, yeah, the carnage that would actually do, the carnage. Let's see the damage.
Okay, let's see what's happened.
Now that would send a message, wouldn't it, to a rival drug dealer?
I don't think anybody in that vehicle would have survived. Back seat or front seat.
Look at that.
It's absolutely incredible. I mean, the debris comes way back to here, getting into slightly larger pieces. The bonnet ended up over there.
That is horrific, isn't it? Look at that. Oh, I mean, that is just...
That's half a kilo, about a pound. This says nobody's safe. You know, this is indiscriminate. This can be done when they want, how they want. Yeah, very, very effective.
So is this the kind of typically the scene after a pipe bomb in a car?
Yes, I mean the actual damage, if you look at it, most of it's occurred, well, all of the damage, the most severe damage has occurred in the area of the driver. Unfortunately, the driver of this vehicle would have literally probably been blown in two, unfortunately. It really is a sobering thing to see.
Coming up, Donal meets the woman standing up to Gangland's criminal kingpins.
I have been threatened by drug dealers. I've threatened them back, basically. I know where they live, they know where I live.
Donal MacIntyre is in his native town, Dublin, where he's learning some disturbing home truths. Local gang bosses have used the old IRA smuggling routes to flood the country with illegal drugs and firearms. Now, with the gangs killing each other over valuable dealing turf, the people of Dublin are caught in the crossfire.
What are the consequences? I would say that the consequences are that a lot more people are going to die. I don't think it's going to go away. I really don't believe it's going to stop. Because you see, every time one guy is taken out, there's always somebody to replace him, and that's happening quicker and quicker and quicker. The number of murders is going through the roof. The number of attempted murders is going through the roof. The number of bomb incidents have gone through the roof. And the death toll is going up all the time. So no, it's not. I don't believe it's going to end. I believe it's going to get a lot worse. In fact, it's given Ireland a very, very bad name.
But amongst the wreckage, the people of Dublin are starting to fight back.
Well, just 5 kilometres from the tourist hotspot of Temple Bar is the Crumlin area of Dublin. Now that's the centre of a major gangland feud between the Crumlin and Drimnagh gangs led by Fat Freddie Thompson and Declan Whacker Duffy. And of course the battle is over drug distribution and cash.
Susan Collins lives in the heart of Crumlin and knows the problems affecting the community better than most.
The Crumlin Road actually divides two of the most prominent gangs in the Dublin area. The gangs have, in my opinion, no morals, and they actually don't care about the community that they live in. Most roads in this area would have a dealer. I do live on a road that has gangsters living on it, and I'm sure they watch me and I watch them.
In 1996, Susan's brother died from a drug overdose. Having witnessed how the drug epidemic in the city was affecting her community, she set up Addiction Response Crumlin to help addicts and their families. The local dealers saw this as a threat to their business and confronted her. But she's not scared.
I have been threatened by drug dealers a number of times. I've threatened them back, basically. I know where they live, they know where I live. Although I would be well aware to mind myself when I'm walking around the community. I would change what way I go or things like that, you know. I'm no fool. I'm not going to be caught up in this feud. I can protect myself. You'd want to be mad not to be scared of them. I have felt like moving out, but then that's like you allow people to bully you out of your own area, and I'm just not going to do it. So I'm staying.
For Susan, the problems she faces in Crumlin are the same as those faced across Dublin and Ireland.
There's like a gangster world developed in this country that people wouldn't actually believe. There's a lot of young people being dragged into the dealing of drugs, and children as young as 10 are now being used to carry the drugs around the city on push bikes. Anyone could get drugs in this area quicker than you'd get a pizza delivered to your house.
Susan's frontline approach has given her unique insight into what's happening.
I don't think people buying drugs realise that they're actually fueling these gangs. They need to recognise that when they get their coke for their Saturday night party, you're fueling the gang that's killing my community.
With the gangland war continuing in Dublin, it will take more people like Susan to stand up to rid the city of the gangs and their drug empires. But when faced with ruthless killers who aren't scared of assassinating journalists and who use bombs on an alarmingly regular basis, the fear that seeps out of the city is understandable.
Number 55, Clonliffe Road, please.
Well, the Dublin I grew up in and the city I call home is a million miles away from the city I've uncovered now. And with the Dublin drug gangs emerging as a force akin to the Italian mafia, I have to fear that the future of this beautiful city will be one of continued bloodshed and senseless murder. And as I leave my hometown, I'm left wondering if the Irish troubles are over or if they've just begun.